Hi guys, welcome back to my channel, and first off, thank you guys so much for all the love and support you've shared for me in my last video I created about Disney. I was really excited and passionate to share about my experience auditioning and the different types of auditions I saw, so I was so glad to see you guys found that helpful and encouraging, and it just makes my day being able to talk with you guys about that. So I am back with a second video. I wasn't planning on doing this, but you guys had so many requests for more videos on Disney, so I thought I'd create one just talking about what it's really like to be a performer. The good, the bad, the ugly, everything. So I'm going to tell you guys all about being a performer. First off though, I am going to talk briefly about character integrity. Disney is huge on character integrity. What that means is the characters that they have created, they want to upkeep. They want to keep the magic alive for people. That's the whole point of Disney. That's why it's different from a regular theme park that you might go to down the street, is it's really magical because of the characters and because of the stories too. And they really want to keep that alive. And that's what they teach about character integrity. So the characters are separate from the performers. I am not Mickey Mouse. Never have been, never will be, but regardless, I'm not Mickey Mouse. Mickey Mouse is himself. You see Mickey Mouse up on the stage, then he's in the parade, he's going out on dates with Minnie Mouse. He is himself. You cannot be Mickey Mouse. There's only one Mickey Mouse and he is himself. Make sense? For the purpose of character integrity, I will not be saying things like I was such a character, because the characters are themselves, the performers are themselves, they're separate. Just keep them separate. I know if you're an adult, you have a hard time believing in magic, but I like to keep the magic alive, and I would like to do so on my channel, so that's why we're going to have character integrity, and I'm not going to be explicitly saying who I was, what I did. It's okay to imply it. You can say you were friends with or you spent a lot of time with someone, but I will never explicitly say I was this character, because I think it ruins character integrity and it also kind of ruins the magic a little bit. So I want to keep the magic alive, and I hope that's okay with you guys too. I want to start things off on a positive note, and my first thing I want to share is that going to work as a character performer can turn your really bad days into really good ones. Honestly, there is not a more rewarding job than being a character performer. It is so great to hug all these kids and have kids tell you how much they love you, how wonderful they think you are, and it's just kind of funny. It's really funny to see what little kids will say, because sometimes they're really nervous to meet characters, sometimes they're excited. So being a character performer and even an attendant is just a rewarding job, because you could go in there having a really rough day and come out of it and leave work with a big smile on your face. It is so magical just to get hugs and that much love from people consistently. Like, that's your job, is to love people and be loved by people and just share the magic of Disney, and there's nothing more wonderful than that. The second thing I wanted to mention is that you'll get some unusual guests sometimes. So one thing for me before I started working there was I just assumed all the guests were going to be like me, because that's the only way I ever experienced Disney was through my own eyes, and so I never thought that I would get guests that were a little bit unusual. You'll get some proposals. I had one that was kind of awkward because he wasn't on one knee, and she was like yelling at him like, why aren't you on one knee? And like, it was just really awkward. Like, I personally didn't think they were ready to get married. They kind of argued during the proposal, which I thought was kind of weird, but I don't know. So anyway, so I got proposals, you get big groups. I remember one time I had a group of 26 or 24 come through at the grotto when I was working, and it filled up the entire room. So that was fun too. So you get all different types of people from all different types of countries and cultures, and so it just really broadens your horizons, and it's really interesting to see, and it's fun too. Of course, you get some guests that aren't always the easiest. They're not very friendly, and they've had a rough day, and they were standing in line for a long time, so they're a little grumpy, which I saw that a lot more as an attendant than I did as a performer. Because when you're performing, they're not going to be grumpy to you. They're going to be grumpy to the attendant. So, but yeah, it happens. You get lots of unusual guests, but it makes things fun. One of the unfortunate downsides I wanted to mention was that body shaming does happen a lot. I saw it from friends happening a lot when they were on stage. I got it, I feel like, more backstage. So on stage, if you are performing as a character that's not wearing a lot of clothing, that maybe is showing their stomach or their arms or any part of their body, for some reason people like to criticize them. I feel like that happens on YouTube too, where people just think that you're a picture in a box and they can say whatever the heck they want to you and forget the fact that you're a human being with feelings. So that happened. People would tell, I mean, I heard horror stories from my friends about people would like body shame my friends who were performing while they're performing. So basically they're body shaming the character. So and just saying like, oh, well, you're not as pretty as the one we saw yesterday, or oh, you know, you're kind of like on the heavy side, or oh wow, you packed on, like just stuff like that. It's just like really unnecessary, but it happens. For some reason while you're performing, people just think that you're a robot maybe, and they forget that you're a human, and they'll just say awful things to you. I never really had it happen to me, thankfully, on stage. Backstage, body shaming happens too. The costume sizes are a little bit different than they would be in real life. A small could be like a size 6, and then other days a small could be a size 0. So it just really depended a lot and fluctuated. And so I feel like there was a lot of body shaming when it came to the costume sizes within performers. Like, personally, I was a little bit on the smaller side. I was exercising a ton when I was there. I wasn't drinking alcohol, so I lost a significant amount of weight when I was there. I wasn't trying to, but it just happened. So I fit into the smaller sizes just because I feel like that fit me better. When I was performing, I felt like I was able to move in it better. So I wore smaller sizes, and there'd be people like look at me and be like, oh, like I see that you're getting a size blah blah blah. Like they'd be like, oh, who's the one with this size? Like, it was just really weird because people would be body shaming me for wearing a smaller size even though they could fit in the same size. That happened too between sizes and costumes, and just, I don't know, it was just really weird that performers would do that to each other, but it happens. When you're around a bunch of beautiful people, you're gonna get some sort of competition, which leads into my second one, is that it's really hard not to compare yourself to others because you're constantly performing with other people, that it's really easy to compare yourself, and that can get really hard. I know for me it got really hard, and there was a lot of nights I went home and I just felt really, I guess, down. It never happened because of the guests, it was more because of comparing myself to other performers and like, oh my gosh, they're so amazing, look at all the opportunities they have, or wow, they're in such great shape. And it just, I mean, we're constantly surrounded by that many people that are just, they look perfect. I mean, they look like Disney characters, that's why they're there. It's really easy to get down on yourself and compare yourself to others. So I do have to say that is kind of like the downside, is that you will get body shamed a little bit because for some reason the guests and some of the other performers decide to be vocal about what their opinions are about how you look or how they look, and so that can be really hard. But at the end of the day, it's like you can choose to let it affect you or not. So another thing I wanted to talk about was that it's hard to see growth in that position. So for example, when I was working at Sephora, I started off as a cashier, and then I became a beauty consultant. So I was doing makeup on people. I was walking around the store making sure everyone knew what they were doing or didn't need help. And then I got certified to do makeovers. So I would just be doing a lot of makeovers for like an hour long and doing the whole face. So that's kind of like when I mean growth, that's what I mean, like in a position or in a company. It's just starting off at one point and seeing a clear angle or seeing where you could go. So for Disney and performing, there's not really a clear sense of growth. Way back when, there was more of a sense of growth, meaning that you started off at one position and then the people who had been there longer had more opportunities to do parades or shows. But when I was there was no sense of like earning anything, if that makes sense, which is kind of hard to earn anything when it's like based off of how you look. Like, for example, I could never hang out with Princess Tiana. I think that's pretty obvious, but I could never do that. So some things are limited based off of how you look, but it's hard to get a sense of like, well, if I stayed for 2 more years, would I actually get to do parades and shows? For me, it was really hard to get a sense of like growth in the company. I saw myself in my one position, but there was no guarantee that I would get multiple positions or that I would have more opportunities to do parades and shows. I felt like I had the right standing for it when it came to scoring, but you had no reason of no way of knowing. Like, there was people there who were there not as long as I was, and I wasn't even there for very long, that got to do parades and shows and all these great things, and they got to surpass people who had been there for 5 years. So there's no sense of where you could go or how you're gonna get picked for that, and it's kind of hard to tell. So I know that can be really disheartening for a lot of people, especially when I was there, because it feels like you're competing with each other, which it shouldn't feel like that. You should be building each other up. But in that sense, you see each other as your competition, because if there's so many performers but they can only have so few performers for parades and shows, then your chances are even smaller. That was the one thing that was hard for me, was that there wasn't really a clear sense of growth or growth path in the job, and that's part of the reasons why I left. One thing that's kind of challenging to do as a performer too is create lots of stories. So your whole goal is to create stories for people when they come in and meet you. So that's how you can tell a good performer from one that's maybe kind of slacking off a little bit. I mean, trust me, there were days where I was not feeling it and I probably was slacking off a little bit more. But for the most part, I absolutely loved my character. I loved the story, and so I really wanted to bring that to life. So I constantly was creating new stories, and you have to stick to the main concept, but you can kind of branch off and create little mini stories based off of the main ideas from the first movie. So for me, my character was based off the first movie, and so I could bring in characters from that movie, and I can mention things here and there, like there was a TV show, so I kind of every once in a while would bring in things and ideas from the TV show as well. So you do have to stick to that same story, and it's kind of hard creating new stories too, but eventually you kind of get a rhythm for it and you get more comfortable in your job. And I would create stories for like birthdays. I would have a specific birthday story I would do, and I could embellish it in different ways, because you do have to engage with guests. Guests are always so different. Like, some of them don't talk, some of them talk a lot, some of them want to drive the conversation, some of them clam up. So you do have to be prepared for whatever kind of guest you're going to get. So you do have to create lots of stories, and that can be kind of challenging at first, but once you get used to it, it's not so hard. And to close this out, because I feel like this is going to be a little bit long, but there's a lot of things I want to talk about. I'll talk to you guys about some things that I kind of hated as a performer and some things that I absolutely loved. So one of the things that was really hard, and I actually did kind of hate as a performer, was when you get adults that will come in and or even kids sometimes, and their goal is to try to break you and make you seem not real. So a lot of times what they're not realizing is that there could be other families around you, and there could be other kids around you that do believe in that character and do believe in magic. And so what you're doing by trying to make this person be like, oh, well, it's just a performer, it's not real, and you're trying to break character integrity, you're making it harder for that person who's trying to do their job. That's their job, is to perform and to bring that magic alive. And so it's not really funny to me when people try to like mess with a person who's performing and try to, you know, make them break character, because that's their job, and they could get fired if they broke character. Like, if someone came up to me while I was performing and said my real name or was talking to me and I broke character, I could easily get fired for that. So you're trying to basically get someone fired, which doesn't make a lot of sense to me, because their whole goal and their job is to bring the magic alive for you and make your experience more memorable. So if you're watching this and you're one of those people, just try to keep that in mind when you're meeting a character or performer, that they're just trying to, you know, make your experience really magical. So that's their goal, and it's kind of hard to do that when you're trying to break character integrity. Another thing that's hard too is when you bring like 20 autograph books. So you have a family of 15 and there's 8 kids, and they each have their own individual autograph book. And so kind of like I mentioned earlier with coming up with stories, is I can't focus on a story if I'm busy signing autograph books. Like, it's really hard for me to engage with you when I'm signing the autograph books. And a lot of your time is going to be spent on me with my head down trying to sign the autograph books. So one thing to keep in mind too, if you're visiting the parks as a guest, maybe only have 1 or 2 autograph books, and people can share, people can take pictures of it, because honestly, I feel like a lot of those books just catch some dust on the shelf. Sometimes they're turned into scrapbooks, which is really awesome, but not all 8 I feel like are going to be loved and cherished. So if you have a kid that's maybe like 16 and they're not really interested in the whole autographs, but you have an autograph book for them, just maybe enjoy this character interaction a little bit more than getting that autograph, because I will be spending more time on the autograph than I will be interacting with you. And honestly, interacting with you is a lot more memorable than what I write on a piece of paper. Enough of the things that I hate, now into the things that I love. Honestly, I'm gonna start off with this. I love adults who love my character or love Disney or love the magic. There is nothing more magical to me than seeing an adult who is so excited and so giddy, or even cries. Like, I've had adults like cry before, and I just love it. It touches my heart because I am right there with them. I'm a big kid and I just love Disney, and I love the magic, and I love the characters and the stories. And so seeing other adults who love that too just makes my day. Honestly, it makes my day. I love that. And so if you're an adult and you love the character, like, don't be afraid to tell the character. The performer performers love it when you just love their character, because that means so much to them, and they obviously are doing it because, well, hopefully they're passionate about it and they do love their job. That's why they're doing it. I absolutely loved adults who just love my character, love my story. It just made me feel special because I could really relate to them. Another thing that I absolutely loved were just little kids, and they would say the most random things. Like, it was just so cute. I remember this one little boy came in and he was so shy and he had a huge crush on my character, and it was just so endearing, and it's just so entertaining too. So if you have a little kid who's just talking a lot, most of the time it's not obnoxious or annoying. I'm sure the performer absolutely loves it. Like, I loved it when little kids would just go off on random tangents and talk about the funniest things, or even just seeing what kids would say to different things that I would bring up. It was just so entertaining to see what they would come up with. So that was another thing that made my job so wonderful, was just seeing what little kids would say, like random weird things that didn't make any sense. That just made my job so much, and I just loved it so much. Another thing that I love too is just people. People are just so special, and they have their own stories. I mean, the characters have their own stories, but people have their stories too. And so I just love being able to meet new people and hear their stories and just interact with them, and it was just so magical to meet people from all different walks of life. There was one woman I met, and she was maybe in her early 40s, and my character was her favorite, and she had never had the opportunity to meet my character before, so she was crying, and it was just so wonderful and magical because I also share that love of that character. And so the whole thing can be really magical as a performer, just seeing how much of a difference you can make in other people's lives. Like, you have the opportunity to hug people and tell them how much you love them and how wonderful they are and how beautiful they are, and just make them feel valued and loved. And that's one of the things that's just so amazing about Disney, is you can escape reality for a little bit and really believe in magic and dreams, and it's such a happy place. And you never know what someone's going through. You never know why someone's coming to Disney World, if it's their first time, if it's their last time, if it's their only time. You never know what that means, that trip means to people. And so it's amazing to be able to be a part of that as a cast member, a performer, attendant, what have you. It's really amazing just to be able to experience that and help create that magic for people as well. The last thing I absolutely loved was I loved people who would engage with my story. So a lot of the times we would have people there who would just be kind of shy and clam up and just come up to meet you, and they're just really quiet, and I think they're just overwhelmed. But it was always really fun to talk to people who knew my story and loved it, because I knew my story like the back of my hand. I knew my story since I was a kid, so I could talk about the TV show, I could talk about any of the movies, anything. So it was so amazing for me when people knew my story and they would ask me specific questions, because I could maybe use quotes or different things from the movie, and I knew that they would get it, and I knew that they would think that was cool. So that was my favorite thing too, was interacting with kids or adults that knew my story really well and could ask me more difficult questions. Again, they weren't trying to break me, they were just trying to talk with me about the story. And so that was really fun for me to be able to engage with people who genuinely love the story as much as I did. So overall, it was amazing being a character performer. I absolutely loved it. That was my dream job. A lot of people ask me now, like, what is your goal in life? And I'm like, well, I don't really know, because that was my dream job, and I absolutely love being there, and I do miss it so much. My heart really misses it. I know being a big adult, I needed to move on and put my degree to use, and it was a really big adult decision for me, but I really miss performing. And so it's been really nice just being able to share that with you guys and answer your questions and talk to you about performing, because it almost keeps the magic alive for me being able to talk about it, because I do love it so much and it's so special to me, and it was such an amazing part of my life, and I will never forget it. And so I hope you guys, if you guys are thinking about auditioning or wanting to do this role as well, I highly encourage it. It is so much fun. Yes, there are some downsides, as I mentioned, but there are some amazing things too. And honestly, at the end of the day, the amazing things far outweigh the things that are negative. Like, I did mention some negative things about sometimes you get guests that aren't the most fun, or sometimes there is some body shaming or people, you know, being rude to you. But at the end of the day, the little kid who's hugging you or the adult who's crying because they've been so excited to meet you, that makes it all so worth it. It is such an amazing job, and I truly cherished every moment that I had there. So I hope you guys enjoyed this little video about what it's really like to be a character performer. If you guys have any questions, again, not breaking character integrity, but if you have any general questions about what it's like performing, I would love to answer them in the comments below. So thank you guys again so much for watching, and I'll see you guys in my next video. Bye!